Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest book review on the PowerPlayChess channel. Very excited that we've resumed these book reviews, and I'm delighted to say that we are looking at this new book, Ulf the Attacker, by my guest here, Thomas Engqvist, International Master. So, Thomas, welcome. How are you this evening?
Thank you for inviting me to your channel, Daniel.
Uh, you are most welcome. So you're in Sweden at the moment.
Yes, I am in the area of Stockholm, in a suburb called Solna. It's a famous, how to say, football area.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
that interests me greatly. We should probably. I would like to discuss that later on, as I'm a big footy fan. But anyway, before that, we need to discuss this splendid new book. So, Ulf the Attacker. So, from the outset, I'll just welcome everyone online. So, if you're out there, let me know you're out there. We've got one guest already. Thomas. I'm looking at the chat over here on YouTube, so I can say we've got Bella Glavi Sup, who's here. Well done. Nice to see you, Bella Glavi. And yeah, if you're out there, let me know you're out there. It'd be very nice to hear from anyone. And I'm going to be asking questions as we go through a couple of games from the book. So, Thomas, first of all, hi, PL says hi from Hamburg. Fantastic. You see, they're flooding in now, Thomas, which is great. So, first of all,
Yeah.
Thomas, tell me about this book, which has just been published, I believe, Ulf the Attacker, with the strapline 56 thrilling games from Sweden's chess legend. So, first of all, tell me, how did you go about, why did you want to write this book?
Yeah, my plan has always been to write a book about Ulf Andersson. My first book as a chess writer was about Tigran Petrosyan for Everyman Chess in 2014. And my original question was, are you interested in a book about Ulf Andersson? But they were not so interested. They said it was better to focus on a world champion. So I disregarded that project. But later on, in 2019, I contacted a Swedish company who wanted to publish a book in Swedish. Yeah, I can show it here. It looks like this.
Yeah.
So this is a Swedish book.
Okay.
But this is another book now in English. So the Swedish book was co-authored with Robert Ockbö. And I asked him if he wanted to write an English book about Ulf, but he was not interested. So I'm the only author to this book. And I annotated 60 games in this book, but New in Chess thought the format was too big. And that is the reason it's now 56 thrilling games instead of 60.
Okay, so you've fine-tuned it to just 56. So I should say from the outset, I'm a big fan of Ulf Andersson. I think he's a very nice guy, and I've always been a fan of his style of chess. But when we think of all that Ulf Andersson, we think of this strategic prowess, a brilliant positional player, and yet you're writing about Ulf the Attacker. So why did you want to take this aspect of his play?
To be honest, I discovered this already when I wrote my book about Petrosyan, because he also has this reputation of being a very quiet player. And in my opinion, it's not so easy to categorize players in different categories. And I think it's the same with Ulf, because when I looked at Ulf's games when he was very young, he took greater risks than he did when he played against the best players in the world. But also as a correspondence player, he could take risks. And of course, if he met players maybe in matches. And I think this side of him has been overlooked. Of course, he's a great endgame technician, but he could also attack, he could take risk. And I think we need a book which really covers that aspect of his style.
Well, I tell you, I'm really glad that you've done this because I think, as with every strong player, and Ulf at his best was, I would say, is in the top 10 in the world. Maybe even reached number 3 in the world at his best.
Yeah, he was number 4. Maybe I think he was number 3 unofficially.
Yeah.
But officially, he was number 4.
So, as one of the strongest players in the world, of course, he could play any kind of chess, basically, if you're that strong. So,
Yeah.
I should just mention for people just arriving late to the broadcast that this is published by New in Chess, and it costs €29.95 or $29.95, and you can get it directly from New in Chess. I've posted the link on the chat if anyone wants to buy the book directly from New in Chess. And I can see already we've got, I think the furthest viewer we have is Yamil, who's in Paraguay. Fantastic. If anyone on the chat can do better than Paraguay, then do let us know you're out there. Listen, Thomas, you've sent me a couple of games that we should go through to illustrate what a great attacker he is. So this first one I want to look at is Ulf Andersson playing white against Lajos Portish from Hungary. And this was played in the Olympiad in 1972. So Ulf playing white, and he's playing e4. He didn't... Well, again, I don't think of him as particularly an e4 player, which is interesting.
He was an E4 player when he was young, in the 70s and in the 60s and the beginning of 70s.
Okay. So anyway, he plays bishop b5, which is very, very popular nowadays, and actually started to become popular, I remember, in the 1970s. Oh, we have Mohammed Khalfa from Oman. Okay, that's pretty far away. So we've got a very global audience here anyway. So Portish plays knight c6, and Ulf castles. And so far, everything pretty normal here.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I would say is that, I'm a big fan of playing bishop b5 at an early stage. And I think one thing one should note is that look at black's kingside pieces, and white has already castled. So already, I would say black has to be a little bit careful here. Okay, knight f6 and c3. Okay, I'm going to ask our viewers, how would they play as black in this position? So it's Portish, incredibly strong player, qualified for the candidates on countless occasions. How do you play as black here? So I'm going to throw this to our viewers. Black to play in this position. And we'll just have to wait a few moments. Rani asks, did you ever play against Ulf? Thomas, did you ever play against Ulf?
I played a simultaneous game against him. I think it was in 1995, and he offered a draw when he had a 1 position.
Did you crack? Did you take it, or did you play on?
No, he offered a draw when his position was
Oh,
winning.
he offered a draw when his position was winning. Oh,
Yeah,
right.
I was positionally outplayed in the Caro-Kann defense.
Okay, interesting. So,
Yeah,
did you presumably you took it then?
yeah, and I was obviously happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So why did he offer a draw?
Yeah, sometimes he can do that. That is, yeah, one peculiar, both good and bad thing about him. There are some stories in the book. For example, this game against Zizishvili, he felt ashamed to win the game, so he offered a draw. So Zizishvili could even get his GM norm, if I remember it correctly. It was an important game for Zizishvili.
Well, it's very interesting. Yeah, I always associate Ulf with a sense of fair play. So we've got lots of people saying for example, Belaglavi and P Bishop brackets Alekin's cat are suggesting e6 followed by d5, and Mohammed Khalfa is saying a6 or e6. I think, and Yamil is saying g6. It's very interesting. I think already these moves like g6, I would say White already has a significant advantage in this position. What's your take on this, Thomas?
Yeah, I think this Moscow variation, or Rossolimo, because the knight is on c6 now, the idea is that Ulf Andersson's play is very simple here, and that is the idea. But this is also very logical to put up a classical center. So, I mean, that is how he could manage to fool some of his opponent, because it's more dangerous than it looks like. But as you said earlier, Daniel, it takes very long time for Black to develop his king side. So he
I,
still needs to do two more moves.
I think Black has to be really switched on here, and already I think this is a significant advantage. And if one plays, for example, e6, as someone said, with the idea d5, then this can be rather fraught, because this kind of position simply leads to, I think, a very favourable kind of French position for White.
Yeah.
Once this knight is eliminated. So yeah, I think Black has to be very careful, actually. So in the game, a6 played, and Ulf played back to f1. Yeah, I like this very much, actually, because if the bishop comes here, then it can be chased around and it can lead to a Spanish kind of position. But I think this is a good idea to put the bishop straight back on f1. Okay, and I'm going to ask again our viewers what they would play with Black in this position. Black to play. By the way, Thomas, do you ever play this opening with White?
Yeah, I played it in a game against Evgeny Agrest, who nowadays is a very strong grandmaster in the Swedish Championship 1997, and I was very successful. And I think it was because this is a very positional, simple opening, and it's a good choice against strong tacticians.
Yeah, I think it's just a good choice, full stop.
Yeah, stupid.
I think White has a very sound position here, and Black
Yeah,
still has to work to bring the king to safety. In the meantime, White has two ideas. One is that sometimes the king is vulnerable, and the second idea is that White is simply building a strong centre, and it's difficult for Black to actually meet both ideas. That's been my experience as I played this. So no one is making a suggestion as Black here. This is very interesting. You see, they're already terrified. Okay, Mohammed Khalfa says now e6. Yeah, again, Mohammed, I come back to this problem, is that this leads to a kind of French position where I would say this is already quite favourable for White, because this diagonal will be open, the bishop comes here, and the d-pawn is very well protected. So already I would be very, very comfortable playing with White's position. I think it gives White very natural attacking chances. But it's interesting that So far, no one has come up with the kind of theoretical move. There's a move, Thomas, I'm sure you know, a decent move for black in this position.
Well, to be honest, I think black's position is a little bit unsound.
Oh, really? I
As
wouldn't
the
go
king
that far.
side is not, he's too slow on the king side.
Yeah. Okay,
So he
so
has to do something quickly here.
Eamon Moore has suggested e5, which is the move that Portish played. So Eamon, you can just reassure yourself that you played the move that was played by Portish, one of the strongest players in the world in the early 1970s. So Eamon, I think you're doing okay. I mean, this is the theoretical move, bishop g4 actually. Boyan Maximovich suggested bishop g4 just as I was saying it. Yeah, I mean, this is the normal move, in fact. And then it's possible to play
to prevent d4 with the pieces rather than pawns.
Exactly, and then to play e6 and bishop e7 and castles. And in fact, this is a reasonable way for black to play. But okay, white can do some interesting stuff as well. But indeed, Portish did play e5. So, okay, what are the pros and cons of this move, Thomas?
Well, the drawback is that the bishop on f8 is a problem, and there are potential weaknesses on d5 and d6. But the good thing is that he tries to develop the king side, presumably with bishop e7 and castling short.
Yeah, exactly. So Portish is addressing that problem. Now, interestingly, Ulf did not play d4 here, and I suspect that he was concerned perhaps about this. And he played h3. Normally, I'm very critical. I'm very harsh when my students play moves like h3, these little, I call them little ears at the side of the board. But Portish did the same. He also played h6. And then d4. Whether this is necessary is a moot point. I think it might have been better just to play bishop e7 and castles.
Yeah, h6 is not a good move.
No.
White's h3 is a logical move. I mean, you even play it in the Roy Lopez. So
yeah, but h6 is certainly superfluous. And I think it would have been better simply to play this and castle. But anyway, h6 played, and now d4. Every move counts in the opening, and yeah, if black falls behind in these kind of opening positions, in this kind of opening system, then yeah, it's unpleasant. So, for example, I mean, you've given this variation, and yeah, I mean, we can say that white already has a very pleasant position with this backward d pawn or isolated d pawn. Anyway, Portish played queen c7. Right, I'm going to throw open the position again. Throw a question open to our viewers. What did Ulf play now? And I think this move, for me, is kind of a very typical Ulf move, actually. Let's see what viewers are thinking. So white to play. Just for those arriving late, I should say, we're discussing this book, Ulf the Attacker, which Thomas has written, just published, 56 thrilling games from Sweden's chess legend, Ulf Andersson. Very nice book, published by New in Chess. I've got the link in the chat up there. So it's all gone quiet again. White to play. What did Ulf do next? d5, suggested by Yamil. Ferzan suggests d takes e5. Well, I think d5 certainly leads to typical Spanish positions. I mean, the knight, I would say, might come here to g6, actually. Taking on e5 could well lead to positions similar to the game. But there's a key move here, which is a typical Anderson-like move, in my opinion. Thomas, I'm sure you've seen this kind of move. hundreds of times in his games. So no one suggested it. It's interesting. A4. I think that's typical Ulf. Would you agree, Thomas?
It's typical Ulf and also typical for this structure, which is very similar to the Spanish.
Yeah, and many other openings. You know, when there are Zavisa, you're a bit late. You're just too late. And Ferzan also. Oh, what am I saying? I'm speaking in other languages now. This is crazy. Yeah. So when there are pawns like this, of course, it's nice to try and shut down b5, cover this move. And potentially later on, these pawns might be fixed with an a5. And g6 played. And yeah, this follow-up is very typical for this a4 move. I'm sure everyone will get it now. Surely. Come on, chat. White play. Already Ulf has completely baffled them with his play. There is a slight delay, so I'm going to give our viewers a little bit of credit. Okay, Zavisa suggests knight a3. Yes, indeed. Thomas, it's a beautiful move, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful because he's developing the knight in a different way, but with a clear purpose. So he's aiming at the weaknesses in Black's position here.
Exactly, and those weaknesses, those squares, very nice, and potentially even d5 if the knight hops around here, potentially at some point. But yeah, these are serious problems for Black. And after this, already the knight hops in to c4, and yeah, d6 is really vulnerable.
And this is an important point. If we compare with the knight is normally on f1, but now you can develop the knight to c4.
Yeah, in Spanish type positions. Yeah, absolutely. And the pawn has just kind of shielded the knight, which is really nice, because if it had gone to a3 straight away, then b5 could have blocked it out. I know obviously b5 simply isn't possible here because of the pin on the a file. So yeah, this combination of moves, particularly with the pawns on c3 and b2, absolutely typical for this kind of pawn structure, which can arise from lots of different openings. I mean, I've seen Ulf do this with from the Reti or English, no, not the English, with the pawn on c3, but certainly some Reti openings anyway. So rook b8 played. Yeah, this is tricky. So after castles, the casting is kind of the obvious move. The question is, what would Ulf do now? Perhaps, Thomas, we won't throw this open. Do you want to talk us through how White could possibly get the advantage here?
I mean, a good move here is to play queen d6.
Yeah.
But then it would not be this attacking game. But this is a very good move to keep a clear positional advantage. The c5. I mean, Black has weaknesses on the queen side here.
Yeah.
Especially the c5 pawn.
So something like this. I mean, this is a beautiful octopus knight, and potentially, a bishop coming to c4 to attack this, and there's potentially also bishop e3 is very nice, because once these pawns are crippled by the pawn on a5, then yeah, b7 is weak, c5 is weak. That very typical kind of Ulf position. So rook b8 was played. Seems to me that white already has some very attractive options here, but if Ulf didn't check, I guess the king will just come up and then the knight has to bounce out again, and then the rook.
Yeah, and black can do an artificial castling.
Yeah.
Rook hd8, king f8.
I still wouldn't be completely convinced by that, I have to say. But in any case, I guess that's what he's planning. But Ulf decided to take the bull by the horns in this position, and he didn't give the check on d6, which would connect black's rooks. So can anyone suggest the move that Ulf played here? While everyone's thinking about an option for white here. So Thomas, tell us. This is a really fine book, I have to say. I've enjoyed flicking through it over the last few days, and as ever, I think it's very well designed and set out by New in Chess. I think they do a really good job. I've had books published by New in Chess, and I'm always satisfied with the design. It's really nice. But how long did it take you to write this actually? Because it's, well, golly, over 270 pages, something like that. How long did it take you?
It normally takes 1 year for me to write a book. So, of course, all games have been computer checked. And also I have to do a selection focusing on games where Ulf plays in a more aggressive way. For example, here you could expect him to play some other variations. Okay, I will not tell you yet because we're going further in the game.
Yeah.
But that is the main point with the book, to show that he could play in other ways, not only striving for the exchange of queens all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of people have suggested a5, and this looks very typical to me and looks like a very strong positional move to claim b6 and would be somehow what I would expect from Ulf. But in fact, he did not play this move. Mohammed Khalfa says maybe b4 sounds aggressive. Yeah, Ferzan Azizolu suggests knight e3. Knight e3 also very interesting actually. Looking at the d5 square. Yeah, I agree, very interesting. But in fact, Mohammed Khalfa has hit the nail on the head with b4. Thomas, tell us, what's the big idea behind b4?
Yeah, this is a key. Like you mentioned, some other more positional moves like a5 and also queen d6. But he played b4, and this is to play in the spirit of Morphy. Morphy very much enjoy this diagonal a3 to f8, especially when black's king has not castled yet. We very much want to have the bishop on a3. So that is the key thing here with b4. So he's trying to open up that diagonal. And now black has to be careful of the move b5.
Yeah, so you mentioned Morphy. I think it's really interesting because, when I think of the Evans Gambit games, then that bishop often comes to a3. Yeah, absolutely typical, preventing the king castling. And yet, very different opening, but similar kind of idea. So yeah, it's about ripping open this diagonal, but also, getting to the king as well. So Portish exchanged. And then he played bishop b6. Let's just have a quick look at what happens on knight takes b4. So how do you think Ulf would have followed up? So I should say that this didn't happen, but what do you think is a good follow-up here?
Are you asking me or the audience?
Well, I'm going to ask you, Thomas.
Well, here knight d6 check looks very interesting.
So knight d6.
King e7.
Yeah.
Bishop a3.
Is this possible already?
Yeah, because if black takes on d6, it will be, even with the queen's exchange, it will be an attack, the
Yeah.
deadly attack on
What
the king.
about if a5 just to stop that?
Yeah, it weakens the b5 square.
True.
But okay, so white has to do something with the knight.
It's not completely clear.
Not completely.
Yeah, it's a pity, that one. In fact, you seem to have given another variation in the book, actually, which was bishop b2.
Oh,
Attacking
yeah,
this
yeah,
one.
now I remember. This is a computer move.
Oh, really?
This is perhaps not a human move because you want to move the bishop to a3.
I don't know. It looks pretty good to me. I mean,
But this
that's
is clever.
yeah, direct
Yeah,
threat, and yeah. So okay, knight
because if the
h7.
knight moves back to c6, then you go to a3. Yeah,
Ah, okay, that's really crafty.
yeah, that's the idea.
Oh, that's
Mm.
beautiful. That's really nice. So in the meantime, e5 is threatened, and if, let's say here, queen d2 threatens the knight, yeah, here, and then taking here, and oh, that's really nice. So white gained a tempo on the knight, but also h6 is on prise. So yeah, black is really in trouble here. Yeah, very nice indeed. Okay, that's, yeah, bishop b2 is a
Mm.
really sweet move. I find it really interesting that, basically all this comes about because black wasted a tempo with h6. None of this would be possible. The king would be already, at the side of the board, but h6, not a good move. So bishop e6 was played. And okay, well, let's stop here and get our viewers to suggest this. So, sorry, you said it took you a year to write the book. White play to our
Yeah,
viewers.
that is yeah, that's the normal pace when I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm working full time as a teacher,
Ah.
teaching languages. So, I mean, effective time, maybe 2 months full time.
Okay, but
You
yeah.
have to calculate with maybe one game per day because you have to do all these analysis.
Well, even annotating just one game a day is pretty serious. And I see what I like about the book is that there are lots of biographical details in the book as well. You talk about his career, and that's also really nice. So it's kind of a little bit of a chess biography of Ulf as well, which is great.
Yeah, and the biographical details are mainly from magazines. But the Swedish book was based on interviews, so the biographies are actually different in these books. It's
Right.
not the same book. The Swedish and the English book are different books.
Okay. And so you interviewed Ulf about the book, about about his life
Uh,
basically.
yes, because there are a lot of information about Ulf in the Swedish magazine called Tidskrift för Schack. We also have another magazine called Schacknytt, Chess News.
Yeah.
And there is information about him ever since in the end of the 60s
Yeah.
when he was a junior player.
But however, you interviewed him to get stuff from the horse's mouth. You wanted to get the real deal from him.
Yeah, that information is in the Swedish book because my co-author and me did 3 interviews with him. But as Robert Oppe is not participating in this book, I have done my own biography about him
Okay.
based on written text.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. But still included some of his thoughts as well.
Yeah, there are many lines coming from him directly because he has been interviewed
Yeah.
many times.
Excellent. Okay. So it's yeah, I'm really enjoying reading it anyway. So suggestions. We've got Bella Glavi is suggesting bishop b2. Yamel is suggesting b5. Let me see. b5. Wow, looks very straightforward. I have to say b5 looks pretty good to me. To be honest, I'm struggling to find a good idea for black in this position. It looks terrifying. And bishop b2 also looks attractive. In fact, the move he played was knight d6, check. So the king stepped up. And here, this is a very nice move. Yeah, I mean, I think, the viewer's suggestions are pretty good, but there's basically more than one way to play this position. So,
Yeah.
so white to play now, white to play here. Still waiting for people to come up with ideas. Everyone's being very shy. Mohammed Khalfa, Eamon Moore, Yamil, they're all onto it now. Fantastic. Excellent. Bishop a3. Well done, guys. Really good. So this didn't happen, but if queen takes, then b5, and well, obviously there's a problem here, so that has to be blocked. And Lucky Left Arm has it as well, and Bella Glavi. So takes, and yeah, white has a very strong attack. It looks pretty bad. I guess a check here could be absolutely fatal. I don't know which rook. It's hard to say. Don't know. Yeah, I mean, they both look fantastic. And the king is being battered all over the place. Very nice. Okay, so in the game, knight e8 was played. I mean, this is incredible that Portish, I mean, he's really, one of the world's strongest players, is in such a bad position already. How old was Ulf in 1972?
Yeah, he was born in the 50s, in the end of the 50s, so he must be in his 20s.
In his 20s, yeah, okay. Now I want to look at another game after this, so I'm going to zip through and show you the final moves. So knight takes b7, queen takes b7, b5 check. Yeah, the king is really suffering now. King here, takes on c6, queen c7 was played, and okay, final move, guys. White to play, final move. Does Ulf have a favourite game actually of his own? I suspect he's a very modest chap. I suspect he would go, oh, I don't know. Thomas, did he pick any game that he was particularly proud of?
You mean my own games?
No, Ulf's games.
Well, I believe that his immortal game is the game he played against Karpov with the black pieces in Milan, 1975.
Yes, brilliant game, the Hedgehog. So is that his favourite? Has he actually expressed that?
Yeah, he did everything in that game. but it's a very long game, but it contains everything: his exchange sacrifice, his attack on the king,
Mm.
and his slow play. He never rush matters. He always, how to say, keep the ball, like Metzi. Uh, and he doesn't rush it. He's just playing around
Yeah,
and
true.
wins according to his pace.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a suggestion of rook c1, which is a very calm move, simply protecting this pawn. But actually, Ulf was less calm, and after knight e5, in fact, Portish resigned. I mean, this is pretty, yeah. Mikhail Livansky has it. So Portish resigned. If queen takes, then queen f3 check. And you can see the king's in trouble. If it comes here, then bishop c1. Bishop f5 takes, opens up the rook. Queen f5 and bishop e7 is mate. Well, that's pretty emphatic. Yeah, I mean, that just shows that Ulf is capable of these absolutely ripping attacks from the word go. And I just want to come back to the opening. Look at Black's king. Very poorly placed at the moment. It needs to get out quickly. But if the king needs to get out quickly, then such moves like h6, guys, don't do it. That's not a good idea. Okay, we've still got time to show another game. Now, this, you say, is a correspondence game. So Ulf playing white again against Ivar Bern. A correspondence game. So I'd forgotten. So tell us about Ulf's correspondence career.
Yeah, he started to play correspondence in 1994. And in this game, he played Ivar Bern from Norway, who actually became world champion from 2002 to 2007.
Wow.
So, and this is pre-computer time, but I can tell you, Ulf never used the computer. He sat at a cafe several hours for several years and analyzed his correspondence games.
He sat in a
And
cafe. He sat
yeah,
in
he
a
sat
cafe.
in a cafe in Arboga, his birthplace.
With a chess set and just analysed for
Yeah,
hours. Wow.
yeah.
I hope he bought more than one cup of coffee, because I just think the cafe owner would have been tearing his hair out to have this guy sitting there for hours on the chessboard. And anyway, that's another story. Oh, fantastic. So this was the like Ulf's corner in the cafe where he
Yeah.
was puzzling things out. How fascinating. And how
Yeah, it's very
successful.
fascinating.
How successful.
Unfortunately, I have never been there, but it would be nice to visit that cafe one day.
How successful was Ulf in his correspondence career?
He was very successful because he became the highest rated player. And as he said himself, for him, a correspondence player is a person who has played for more than 20 years. But he quickly became the highest rated player in the world. It's quite extraordinary.
Wow.
And he also could play very aggressive chess.
As we're about to see. So Ulf playing white and Ivar Bern, who, I mean, I've played Ivar in normal classical chess. Now, he's from Norway, an international master, I believe.
He might be a grandmaster. I have also played him. When I played him, he was international master, but I think he's a grandmaster now. Okay, I'm not 100% sure.
But anyway, strong player. That's very interesting. I didn't realise that Ivar became world champion. That's amazing. So, as you say, pre-computer age. And, I mean, I think what characterises these two games are basically rapid development. And, one has to be so careful, particularly as black, when you start, on the back foot because you play the second move in the game. So, okay, white to play. Let's throw it open to our viewers. White to play. What would you do as white? think I might have played this position with white actually. Once. Can't remember too well. In the dim and distant. It's all gone very slow. I suspect there's a bit of a lag. But anyway. White to play. Bishop g5, Beloglavi suggests. Bojan Maksimovic, a4. Yeah, interesting. Bishop g5 played. So it's all about playing with pieces. And yeah, if black develops the bishop here, then, you know, white can maybe gain a tempo at some moment. So anyway, knight a6 played. Developing a piece. Defending this one. I'm going to zip through because time is really flying. Knight a3. So again, rapid development. Interesting. You know, a lot of people suggested a4, but I think the pawn would simply advance to b4. But knight a3, very interesting. Tempting black into playing this, and then the knight would enter the game. Knight c7 played, which leaves this one a little bit out on a limb, so that's why Ulf played c4. b4, the knight came back, and a5. Now, I think this is a key moment in the game. Absolutely a key moment. And I suspect that this next move completely threw Ivar Bern playing black. So, what is white's next move, everyone? If you'd like to suggest a move in the chat, I'll be very grateful. So, white to play. How did Ulf discombobulate his opponent? For those arriving late, I should say we're discussing Thomas, my guest here, Thomas Engqvist, international master from Sweden. We're discussing his new book, Ulf the Attacker, 56 thrilling games from Sweden's chess legend, Ulf Andersson. So Beloglavi has suggested d5. Yeah, well, d5 is actually, it's a very interesting move, because if that's taken, then I can see that, you know, a move like knight h4 could be interesting. To potentially pick up that pawn with the knight and potentially moving this one in here. In fact, d5 wasn't played. But d5, I agree, looks very typical for this kind of position. In fact, it wasn't this. It's an even more shocking move than d5. Even more shocking. Okay, I'm going to put you all out your misery. Here we go. e4. Thomas, this is an amazing move.
It certainly is. As a matter of fact, he could have played it earlier, but I have noticed with Ulf that he only plays such moves when he had developed his pieces.
Well, he played very sound, rational chess. That's his thing. Very classical player. But e4, I mean, this is amazing. I mean, of course, if this pawn remains here, then, you know, white has these options with a clear advantage. So, I mean, really, this should be taken. It was taken. I'm impressed by the follow-up as well. So, again, I'm going to throw this out there. So, white to play. What's the follow-up? It's really interesting. Have you had a chance to do some lectures and things on the book, Thomas?
Yeah, I had one lecture so far, but I will have one in November as well. And I think this game is very similar to the game versus Portish, and also in the spirit of Morphy, because the idea with e4 is to open the e file against black's king, which has not castled yet.
So Bojan Maksimovic suggests rook e1. Well done. That's the move that Ulf played. Very simple. Just bring the rook into the game. Of course, there's a threat to take the bishop. So white has to make a decision here. And Ivar Bern, remember guys, it's a correspondence game. So he would have had well, I was going to say all the time in the world to potentially analyse the best continuation. And this happened. Takes on d4.
It would have been better to take the knight on f3 because the knight on c2 was more passive.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
And then this still feels like white could get some serious compensation here. I don't know. What do you think the best way for white to proceed would be? Maybe d5. Is this possible? d5 and maybe bring the knight to e3? Or well, simply rook d1. Still feels like white has fantastic compensation here, actually. Okay, but in the game, this was exchanged. And takes on d4, so there's a threat here. Rook a6. Okay, so white to play now. And again, to me, this is as you mentioned, Thomas. You know, Ulf does things correctly. So before he goes for the final attack, so all his pieces come into play, which I really like, and that should give you all a massive clue as to white's next move. I'm presenting it to you on a plate. I'm sure you can get the move now. Hey, Thomas, when you play, are you more positional player? Do you like, playing gambits, sacrificing, attacking play, or what's your style when you play?
I believe in the positional sacrifice, but maybe not to play an opening gambit. I think it's better to play a gambit later in the game when your position is fully developed, like Ulf does here. I think that is a great concept.
Absolutely. And okay, it seems like everyone is learning. Well, as I said, it was a gift to our viewers. Rook d1. So this is beautiful, isn't it? When all the pieces are in play, everyone's come to the party, which is great. Mm. And yeah, black is rather struggling here to develop because moves such as knight c6 come into play. h6 played, an exchange on f6. So in exchanging bishop for knight, this is basically just gaining time for white, isn't it? It's about winning a move. And now Ulf follows with a really, really powerful move, after which the writing is very much on the wall.
Yeah, so you have to find what is the weakest point in black's position. And as you mentioned, Daniel, here Ulf Andersson's play is reminiscent of Fischer because he understands the value of time by taking on f6. He could have played bishop f4, but bishop takes f6 is the most precise move.
Well, Boyan suggests knight b5, and I have to say knight b5, I should say, wasn't played. However, Thomas, it also looks pretty good to me. What do you think of knight b5, Thomas?
Knight b5, I don't recognize that move in this position, but spontaneously it looks interesting. But what about queen d8?
Yeah.
Maybe it helps black.
Yes, and I was wondering in this position if... Yeah, I was trying to find some way through this. Bishop b7, rook b6 is okay. So yes, maybe queen d8 just about hangs on. Yeah. Interesting though, but not this move. Lucky left arm suggests queen a4. Well done. Yeah, this is the weak point. And this is a massive problem. And black really doesn't have a good defense now. So bishop c5 was played. And now an absolutely crushing finish. Okay, I think we're just going to have to show it because we're running a little bit short of time. So unless everyone comes up with a move very quickly, I think there's a big lag. Then knight takes e6 is a very nice finish, just opening up the d file. And bishop f2 was played. The king, of course, is completely safe, and now queen takes pawn mate is threatened. So rook takes. And a check. I'll go through to the finish because it's all about just eliminating black's pieces at this point. Yeah, with a big threat here. G6. And rook f1. That's very nice. Hitting this one.
Yeah, now it's like a king's gambit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We've changed the opening again, and yeah, with bishop d5 coming and f7 collapsing, then yeah, black doesn't have a good defense here. I'm guessing. Let me just have a look at queen e3. How does white finish off there? Okay, now I'm testing you, Thomas.
So bishop d5, black will respond rook h7.
Ooh. Yeah.
And of course there is something here because white is in full control here, so it's a matter of threatening the bishop and the pawn on the f file at the same time.
Ah, yes. I see exactly what you mean. Okay, so king g2 and white crashes through here. Must be winning, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that is beautiful when the king helps to decide the game.
Yeah,
like this.
That's true. That's really subtle and somehow very fitting for Ulf as well, who was such a subtle and delicate player in the endgame with his king. So king g2 is a wonderful way to finish an attacking game as well. Eloisa, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Boyan says, good game. Yeah, that was a fantastic game. I'm just going to zip through really quickly from the beginning because I think it really bears a repeat view. So again, this is about really rapid development, isn't it? And this absolutely star move, e4, and this just helps white. Brilliant. And so simple. And then there's no defense to this. Absolutely fantastic. And yeah, black resigned. Well, I think black resigned before then, actually. or what was this the final position, actually? Or did he resign after rook f1?
But didn't black play bishop b6?
Ah, he played bishop b6, sorry.
Instead of, queen e3 was a variation.
Ah, right. So he actually played bishop b6.
Yeah, and bishop b6 wasn't that played here. And now queen b7, right?
Oh, right. I didn't realize that was the finish to the game.
Yeah, because black has two weaknesses, the f7 pawn and the bishop on b6. Right. So after h7, bishop d5, black can pull everything.
Black is overloaded. Right. I didn't realize that was the finish. Yeah, I couldn't see it. Okay, fantastic finish.
But I
Brilliant
think
stuff.
it was more fantastic finish with King G2, actually.
Well, yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah, we discovered a nice variation anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really nice. So um, we're going to have to wrap things up pretty soon, but I just want to say again for all those watching, we've been discussing Ulf the Attacker, 56 thrilling games from Sweden's chess legend, Ulf Andersson. Yeah, written by Thomas, my guest here tonight, and available from New in Chess. I've put the link, I've pinned it in the chat. €29.95 or $29.95. You get it directly from New in Chess. Thomas, I really enjoyed going through this book. Actually, you must be very pleased with it.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very pleased with it because I really managed to find, even 60 games, but we have 56 games here which are full of aggressive play and even where he takes risks. But in those games, he did not take any risk, but instead he showed how he could play like the great Morphy. But there are other games, even games where there are some games where he even lost points, just to show that to play for an attack is not risk-free. So we can
Absolutely.
follow his development to the higher ladder, and then in many games he tried to minimize risk. So what it's all about is calculated risk. That is what is difficult with chess. We must always calculate how much risk can we take.
Yeah. One thing that strikes me, and I think this is demonstrated with this last game actually, is that there's always very often with Ulf's play a kind of artfulness. It's not just about logic, but there are simply some absolutely beautiful moments, and I think this variation with King G2 is typical. But moves like E4, there's real beauty in his play, and Queen A4 as well. Actually, it wasn't crashing in straight away, but he's still picking off squares in a very artistic way, and that's what I really like about his play. Actually, I'm sure that struck you as well.
Yeah, I agree completely. He's attacking in a very clean way, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah, good stuff. Listen, I'm going to close things up there, but thank you everyone for joining in and contributing to the chat. Great to see you here on the PowerPlay Chess channel. And Thomas, I wish you the best of luck with your book. And I can
Thank you.
I can really recommend it to everyone. As I said, I've really enjoyed going through Ulf the Attacker. So, all right, I will see you all soon on the channel. And Thomas, the best of luck, and thank you for joining me. Good night.
Thank you.